My Lord and my God, I firmly believe that you are here, that you see me, that you hear me. I adore you with profound reverence. I ask you for pardon of my sins and the grace to make this time of prayer fruitful. My Immaculate Mother, St. Joseph, my Father and Lord, my guardian angel, intercede for me. There is something quite compelling about stories of conversion, especially when they involve unlikely or surprising characters. We can think of St. Paul or St. Augustine or St. John Henry Newman and lots of others. A more modern-day conversion story is that of Scott Hahn, the well-known Catholic writer and theologian. Hahn was a former Presbyterian minister, and he was once convinced that the Catholic Church was not just mistaken, but dangerously wrong. And he made it his mission to lead others away from Catholicism, believing he was guiding them towards a purer form of Christianity. But over a period of time, through studying the Bible and searching for the truth, he gradually began to see a consistency in the Catholic Church and a rootedness in Scripture that he couldn't ignore. He describes his first experience of attending Mass. He was there, he says, as an observer. He was there to watch and nothing else. He slipped inside a little church where a weekday Mass was taking place, and he sat down in the back pew. He didn't kneel or genuflect or stand when all the others did. He just sat there, observing. And he saw all these ordinary people walking in off the street, presumably in their lunch break, genuflecting and kneeling and praying. And then the bell rang, and they all stood up as the priest entered. And the first thing that he noticed was the amount of Scripture that was contained in the Mass. As someone who was committed to understanding the Bible, he discovered that there was more Scripture reading in a weekday Mass than in the whole Sunday service where he ministered as a pastor. And then the liturgy of the Eucharist began. He watched and he listened as the priest pronounced the words of consecration and elevated the host. It was then, he said, that the last drop of doubt drained away from him. The next day he was back, and the next day after that, and after 2 or 3 weeks of this, he was hooked. He writes, "I was head over heels in love with Christ and his real presence in the Blessed Sacrament. It became the source and the summit and the climax of each day." Well, Jesus, the reason I mention all of this is because in our Gospel reading today, we're presented with another figure who could be described as an observer, someone who was there to watch from a distance, but who gradually gets drawn into the action of what is going on. Zacchaeus was a tax collector. He was an important public official of his time. He had a definite role in his community, which was at odds with the Jewish people. Tax collectors were seen as being collaborators with the Roman authorities, and so there was a certain tension between the two groups. We don't know what it was that made Zacchaeus climb that sycamore tree. He must have looked ridiculous, perching rather precariously in those branches. He would have felt like a fish out of water, just like Scott Hahn felt on his first visit to that little Catholic church for the Mass. But both of them were compelled by a sort of burning curiosity. They wanted to see and to watch something that they instinctively knew to be important. Neither of them were converted at this point. Neither of them were expecting a big, life-changing situation. They simply wanted to see what was going on. But it was this contact with Jesus that made all the difference. For Zacchaeus, it was contact with the person of Christ in his earthly ministry. For Scott Hahn, it was contact with the same Christ in the Blessed Sacrament on the altar. And this contact changed both of them dramatically. Life was never the same again. Jesus, you said, "Today salvation has come to this house." Today, salvation can come to our house too, if we turn to you in love and in faith. And it's true that sometimes we can get a bit tired in our faith. We can start to run on empty. Lukewarmness is a word used to describe a soul who has lost interest in the things of God. A person who is lukewarm has not completely abandoned their faith, but they get along by doing the bare minimum. They come to Mass perhaps, but their heart is not really in it. They neglect their spiritual duties. They fail to examine their conscience on a regular basis. There's nothing about standing still in the spiritual life. If we fail to move forwards, then we're going backwards. There's no spiritual cruise control, if you like. We're either growing in love or we're drifting away. And Scripture doesn't mince words. In the book of Revelation, we read, "I know all about you, how you are neither cold nor hot. I wish you were one or the other, but since you are neither, only lukewarm, I will spit you out of my mouth." This is quite a shocking image, isn't it? Being spat out. It's shocking because such a terrible rejection by God is coming down on people who don't appear to be really wicked. They're certainly not big sinners. They're people who probably regard themselves as fairly okay. Nothing special perhaps, but certainly not deserving of this kind of wrath. And yet here we have it in black and white. I will spit you out of my mouth. St. Faustina wrote these words of Jesus in her diary about those who are lukewarm. There are souls who thwart my efforts, souls without love or devotion, souls full of egoism and selfishness, proud and arrogant souls, full of deceit and hypocrisy, lukewarm souls who have just enough warmth to keep themselves alive. My heart cannot bear this. All the graces I pour out upon them flow off them as off the face of a rock. I cannot stand them because they are neither good nor bad. Apathy is more dangerous than failure. Zacchaeus wasn't perfect, but he cared. He wanted to see Jesus, and that desire was enough. And Jesus, you responded to him with overwhelming generosity. If we don't have a desire for the things of God, or if that desire is waning a bit, then we need to humbly pray for it. And God will reward us for our persistence. He will give us what we ask for. May our encounter with Christ lead us to conversion, like Zacchaeus in the Gospel today. May we be willing to let go of what holds us back, to surrender our pride, and to embrace that mystery that is always offered with love. I thank you, my God, for the good resolutions, affections, and inspirations that you have communicated to me in this time of prayer. I ask you for help to put them into effect. My Immaculate Mother, St. Joseph, my Father and Lord, my guardian angel, intercede for me.